"You don't belong here, new guy," Ryan sneered, his voice dripping with challenge, eyes gleaming with cruel amusement. Especially not a black one. They mocked him, humiliated him, pushed him around. But they had no idea who they were messing with. The bus ride to Brookdale Heights, Ohio, was long and quiet. Jaden leaned against the window, watching the scenery shift from crowded city streets to rows of suburban houses, each one looking like a copy of the last. It wasn't his first time being the new kid. But this move felt different. His mom had taken a better job, and his uncle told him to see it as a fresh start. But fresh starts didn't exist when you looked like him. Not in a town like this. The moment he stepped onto Westbrook High's campus, he felt it. The pause in conversation when he walked past. The way some students glanced at him, then quickly looked away like they hadn't just been staring. The teachers were polite, almost too polite. Their smiles a little too tight. Their voices just a bit too careful. Jaden didn't react. He'd been here before. The first few periods went by without much issue. He took his seat, answered when called on, and kept his focus on the work. But by lunch, the feeling of being watched had settled in, like an itch beneath his skin. Tray in hand, he scanned the cafeteria for a place to sit. Most tables were already full, groups locked in conversations that didn't include him. A few students exchanged looks, whispering. Then he spotted an empty seat near a guy who seemed too busy scrolling through his phone to care. It wasn't ideal, but it would do. Jaden had barely set his tray down when a voice cut through the noise. "You lost." He turned. A blond guy with an easy smirk and too much confidence leaned back in his chair, his friends watching with amusement. Jaden exhaled slowly. "Didn't know I needed a map." The guy chuckled, shaking his head. "Just making sure. Not a lot of new faces around here." Jaden caught the hesitation in his voice. The unspoken part of that sentence. He met the guy's stare, his expression unreadable. "Guess I'm the exception." The smirk widened, but there was something else behind it. Amusement, interest, maybe something else. "Welcome to Westbrook, man." Jaden didn't respond. He just sat down and picked up his fork. The message was clear. This was just the beginning. At first, it was just whispers. Side comments in the hallway, just loud enough for him to hear. "Didn't know they let guys like him in here. Wonder how long he'll last." Nothing he hadn't heard before. Jaden ignored it. He wasn't here to entertain their ignorance. But Ryan Carter wasn't the type to let things slide. Ryan had the kind of confidence that came from never being told no. His dad owned half the car dealerships in town. His crew followed him like he was royalty. Quarterback. Student body, golden boy. The kind of guy who got away with anything. And for whatever reason, Ryan had decided that Jaden's presence at Westbrook was a problem. The first test came at Jaden's locker. He was swapping out his books when, slam, a sharp bump sent him forward. His shoulder hit metal. The sound echoed down the hall. "Oops." Ryan's voice dripped with fake innocence. "Didn't see you there." Jaden didn't react. He grabbed his notebook, shut his locker, and kept his movements slow. Controlled. If he gave them nothing, they'd get bored. Ryan laughed. "You're quiet, huh? That's cool. Real cool." Jaden turned. Looked at him. Not angry. Not scared. Just looking. For a second. Just a second. Ryan's smirk flickered. Then one of his friends muttered something under his breath. Ryan grinned again. "Catch you later, new guy." Jaden watched them walk away. The hallway noise resumed. That was the first time. The second time? The cafeteria. Jaden was heading toward the trash cans when a foot shot out. It wasn't subtle. It wasn't meant to be. His body jolted forward, but he caught himself before he could fall. Laughter. Ryan held up his hands, mock innocence. "Relax, man. It was a joke." Jaden didn't look at him. Didn't react. He just stepped over Ryan's foot and kept walking. More laughter. Someone muttered, "Too easy." Jaden clenched his jaw. His uncle's voice echoed in his head. "A lion doesn't flinch when the hyenas bark." He exhaled. Let it go. But that wasn't enough for them. Because the third time, Ryan made sure it wasn't just a joke. And that's when things changed. It was after school. Jaden had just finished up in the library. Most of the students were already gone. The parking lot was half empty. He wasn't in a rush. His mom wouldn't be home from work for a few hours, and he didn't mind taking his time. As he stepped outside, he heard voices. Too familiar. Hey, new guy. Jaden barely had time to react before something smacked against his back. Hard. He staggered forward, catching himself before he hit the pavement. Laughter. Jaden turned slowly. Ryan stood there, flanked by Nick, Kyle, and a couple of other guys whose names didn't matter. Ryan was still holding his drink cup, the last few drops dripping from his fingers. Damn. My bad, Ryan said, not even pretending to sound sorry. Didn't see you there. Jaden glanced down. His hoodie was splattered with soda. Ice cubes scattered at his feet. Silence. Other students lingering in the lot had stopped to watch. Jaden inhaled through his nose, steadying himself. Ryan smirked. Come on, man. Say something. Jaden didn't. He just started to walk past him. That's when Ryan shoved him. It wasn't playful. It wasn't just a joke. It was forceful, meant to provoke. Jaden stumbled back a step. His breath was calm. His fingers flexed at his sides. Ryan laughed. What, you scared? Nick stepped forward, grinning. Nah, man. He's just soft. Jaden had spent his whole life hearing, walk away. He could hear his uncle's voice in his head. Keep your hands in your pockets. Don't give them what they want. But right now, Ryan wasn't looking for an easy laugh. He wasn't just playing around. He wanted a reaction. He wanted to prove something. Jaden took one last deep breath. Then he set down his backpack. Ryan raised an eyebrow. Oh, you got something to say now. Jaden didn't answer. He just rolled his shoulders back. Ryan chuckled. Man, that was as far as he got. Jaden moved. One step in. Quick. Clean. A left feint. Just enough to make Ryan react. Then a sharp right hook. Straight to his ribs. The sound was sickening. Ryan's breath shot out in a choked gasp as his body folded. But Jaden wasn't done. A pivot. An uppercut. Perfect form. Ryan's head snapped back, and before he could even think about staying on his feet, his legs gave out. He hit the pavement. Hard. Silence. Nick and the others stared. Mouths open. Jaden stepped back, adjusting his hoodie. His breath was steady. Controlled. Ryan groaned, rolling onto his side. Jaden finally spoke. You done? Ryan didn't answer. He just coughed. Jaden looked at the others. Anyone else? No one moved. Jaden grabbed his backpack and slung it over his shoulder. He walked away without another word. But what happened in that parking lot wasn't over. It was just the beginning. By the next morning, the entire school knew. Jaden didn't have to check his phone to figure that out. The way people looked at him said everything. The stares weren't just curiosity anymore. They were different. Some were impressed. Some were nervous. A few looked at him like they were seeing him for the first time. Ryan wasn't in school. That part didn't surprise him. Taking a hit like that, in front of half the parking lot, that wasn't something you bounced back from overnight. Nick and Kyle? They kept their distance. Jaden walked into class like nothing had happened. Sat down. Pulled out his notebook. Business as usual. But that didn't mean people were done talking. At lunch, as he moved through the cafeteria, conversations quieted when he passed. People whispered. A few nodded, like they suddenly respected him. Some freshmen, kids who hadn't even spoken to him before, acted like he was some kind of legend. And then, there were the others. Damn, didn't know new guy had hands. Someone muttered as he walked by. Ryan had it coming. Another voice added. Heard he's not coming back for a week. Jaden ignored it. He wasn't here to be a hero. He wasn't looking for validation. Then, as he sat down, he heard something else. He's just another violent thug. The words were soft, but not soft enough. Jaden turned his head slightly. A couple of girls at a nearby table. One of them, a brunette, expensive-looking jewelry, an expression like she smelled something bad, looked away when she realized he'd heard her. His stomach clenched. That was the thing about moments like these. No matter how justified you were, no matter how right the situation felt, someone always found a way to twist it. But he didn't regret it. Ryan had gone looking for a fight. Jaden just made sure he got one. Still, the weight of it all sat on him. He had spent years training, years controlling himself, years walking away. That wasn't weakness. That was strength. So why did it feel like, no matter what choice he made, people had already decided who he was? But Jaden was about to learn something. Real strength wasn't just about throwing a punch. It was about what came next. The rest of the week passed in a blur. Ryan still hadn't shown up. His friends? They didn't bother Jaden anymore. The stares faded a little. The whispers got quieter. But something still hung in the air. Jaden could feel it. One afternoon, as he left the gym, a voice called out, "Got a minute?" Jaden turned. Coach Harrison. Jaden hesitated. He wasn't in the mood for a lecture. But something in the coach's tone made him stop. They walked outside, standing near the track where the football team was finishing practice. "I heard what happened," Coach said. "Figured you had your reasons." Jaden nodded. He wasn't about to apologize. Coach studied him. "You a fighter?" Jaden shrugged. "Been boxing since I was a kid." Coach let out a low whistle. "Yeah, that much was obvious. You're good. But let me ask you something. Did that fight change anything?" Jaden frowned. Coach crossed his arms. "You think Ryan learned something? Think the rest of them did?" Jaden exhaled, running a hand over his head. He knew the answer. Ryan wasn't the type to reflect. And as for the others? Some respected him now. Some feared him. And some would always see him the way they wanted to, no matter what he did. Coach nodded, like he could see the thoughts running through Jaden's head. "Thing is, people like Ryan? They don't really lose. Not in a way that sticks. He'll come back. He'll run his mouth. And the cycle starts again. But you're different. You have control." Jaden frowned. "What are you saying?" Coach tilted his head toward the field. "I've been telling the boxing coach to send me a few kids for wrestling. You ever thought about putting all that skill to better use?" Jaden blinked. "Wrestling." Coach grinned. "Look, I know you can handle yourself. That much is obvious. But there's a difference between winning a fight and learning how to own your power. I've seen too many kids like you get boxed into a reputation they never wanted. You already proved you're not to be messed with. Now prove there's more to you than that." Jaden didn't answer right away. For so long, fighting had been about survival, about standing his ground. But the way Coach was looking at him, the way he spoke, it wasn't about proving something. It was about being more. That night, Jaden sat on his bed, staring at his uncle's old boxing gloves. He thought about all the times he had held back, all the times he had walked away, and the one time he hadn't. Coach was right. Ryan wouldn't change. People would think what they wanted. But Jaden still had a choice. And maybe, just maybe, this time he'd make a different one. Because real strength wasn't just about knowing when to fight. It was about knowing what to fight for.